Welcome to this explainer. Riding a motorcycle, it's really not just driving. It's this high-stakes balancing act. It demands a deep, almost instinctual connection between your own biological reflexes and a seriously high-powered machine.
So, what does it actually take to truly master a motorcycle? Well, it's a dynamic, literally life-saving dance between your human reflexes, the unforgiving laws of road physics, and just pure mechanical power. Let's break down exactly how we can conquer all three.
All right, here's our roadmap for today. We'll be covering 1. The rules of the road. 2. Your senses and judgment. 3. Battling the natural forces. 4. Anatomy of the machine. And finally, 5. Essential motorcycle maintenance.
Let's jump into Section 1, the rules of the road, or really, earning the right to ride.
You see, the whole licensing system is intentionally designed to scale right alongside your experience. You can't just jump straight onto a massive superbike, right? You actually have to start with a Class 2B license that strictly caps you at motorcycles below 200cc or 15 kilowatts. Then, to step up to Class 2A, which covers those 200 to 400cc bikes, you've got to hold that 2B license for a full, clean year. And yep, it requires another full year of riding at the 2A level before you can even test for your Class 2 license. That's the one that finally opens the door to the heaviest, most powerful machines above 400cc. So it's a super methodical system, built specifically to make sure your skills are evolving right along with your engine size.
But earning that first license, it comes with a pretty tight leash. The second you're granted a new class of license, you're placed under a strict probation for 1 entire year. You legally have to display those distinguishing probation plates at both the front and the rear, and here's a really critical warning for you. The margin for error here is razor thin. If you rack up 13 demerit points within this first year, your license is instantly revoked. Not suspended, revoked. You literally have to start the whole shebang all over again.
Moving right along to Section 2, your senses and judgment, the human element. I want you to think about the number 80. A staggering 80% of all the information you process while riding comes purely through your eyes. Think about that. That is a massive cognitive load on just a single sense. Because of this, you absolutely cannot afford what we call target fixation. You've got to actively keep your eyes moving, scanning the road every 2 seconds or so. Plus, as your speed ramps up, your field of vision physically narrows. Your brain simply has less time and way less peripheral data to actually work with.
And because our vision is restricted like that, a quick little glance in your mirrors, it's never going to cut it. You physically must turn your head and look right over your shoulder before changing lanes or making a turn. Furthermore, just consider the massive blind spots around heavy vehicles. If you're riding in those zones, you're entirely invisible to the driver. Honestly, you've just got to stay out of these deadly areas and always anticipate sudden changes.
Okay, we're spotlighting this stark number 80 once again. But actually, scratch that. This time it represents something entirely different. It's the prescribed legal limit for blood alcohol content, which is 80 milligrams per 100 milliliters of blood. Even a tiny fraction of this amount severely impairs your reaction time, your concentration, and your overall judgment. Riding requires razor-sharp reflexes, right? Mixing alcohol and riding just completely shatters those reflexes. It is a truly deadly mix.
All right. Section 3, battling the natural forces, the physics of riding.
Chief among these invisible forces is centrifugal force. When you negotiate a corner, physics dictates that an outward pulling force is going to generate, basically trying to push you right off your path. And this force gets stronger with the speed of your motorcycle and the sharpness of the curve. If that outward push becomes stronger than your tire's friction, well, you slide out. So what's the countermove here? Drop your speed and shift down to a lower gear before you even enter the turn. This reduces that centrifugal force while maximizing your grip on the tarmac.
And hey, speaking of grip, let's talk about rain for a second. The absolute most dangerous time to ride in the wet is actually during the first 20 to 30 minutes of a downpour. Why? Well, because all the grease, the oil, and the dirt that have piled up on the dry road suddenly mix with the water. It forms this highly slippery emulsion. We call this aquaplaning, and it essentially turns the road into a giant ice rink. Your steering gets incredibly light, and you can lose all control. If this happens to you, do not hit the brakes. No way. You just need to gently decelerate until you actually feel that friction return.
Now let's get into Section 4, Anatomy of the Machine, the mechanical reality.
To actually harness all that power, a whole sequence of mechanical components has to work in perfect harmony. It starts right in the engine where the power is generated. From there, that power flows straight to the clutch, which is what lets you connect or disconnect the engine's force from the transmission. Next, it enters the gearbox to regulate your speed ranges and torque, travels down the drive chain, and finally reaches the rear sprocket to physically push that rear wheel forward. It's like a giant, perfectly timed puzzle.
But where does that initial power actually come from in the first place? Well, most modern motorcycles use a 4-stroke internal combustion engine. It's this rapid, highly rhythmic 1, 2, 3, 4 process that beats right at the heart of your bike. First up, the induction stroke draws a mixture of petrol and air into the cylinder. Second, the compression stroke tightly squeezes that mixture as the piston moves up. Third is the power stroke. This is where a spark plug ignites the gas, creating a literal explosion that forces the piston down. And finally, the exhaust stroke clears out the chamber, pushing all those burned gases out.
Now, to safely command all that explosive forward momentum, you need disc brakes. When you squeeze that brake lever, hydraulic pressure acts through the brake lining, forcing the caliper to squeeze the brake pads against the spinning rotor, or disc. The friction that creates is what slows you down. It's an incredibly efficient system that dissipates heat way faster than those older drum brakes. It quite literally saves your life when you need to stop in a sudden emergency.
Okay, bringing us to Section 5, Essential Motorcycle Maintenance, bridging the human and the machine.
You know, defensive riding actually starts right in your driveway. This means running through a rapid-fire checklist before every single ride to ensure optimal mechanical condition. You've got to check your engine oil levels with a dipstick while the bike is sitting totally upright. You have to inspect your tires for abnormal wear too. And definitely anchor this exact metric in your memory. The law stipulates your tire tread depth absolutely cannot fall below 1.6 millimeters. If it does, you'll lose crucial grip and you're actually committing an offense.
Equally vital is your drive chain tension, which you check midway between the front and rear sprockets. A chain that is too tight, it's going to snap, but a chain that's too loose can actually slip off the gear entirely, entangling the rear wheel and causing a catastrophic accident. The proper amount of slack is exactly 20 millimeters. It is an absolute non-negotiable step to check this before you ever hit the throttle.
Finally, just a quick note on respecting the actual engineering of your bike. Making unauthorized modifications, like say removing the catalytic converter or messing with the exhaust system, it doesn't just ruin the carefully calibrated mechanics we just talked about. It completely compromises road safety and the environment. Because of this, it is highly illegal. We're talking hefty fines of up to $2,000, or even up to 6 months imprisonment. The machine is engineered a specific way for a very good reason.
Earning the license really just opens the door. You are the brain, and the bike is the brawn. So the next time you straddle that engine and look down the asphalt, ask yourself, are you just a passenger holding onto the handlebars, or have you truly mastered the machine? Keep learning, stay safe, and respect the ride.
Today, we're literally putting you in the rider's seat for your very first day on a motorcycle. We're stepping away from the dry manual to give you a crystal clear, structured path so you can hit the road with absolute confidence. Let's dive right in and see how we're going to tackle this.
Here's our game plan for today. We'll start with essential pre-ride checks, move into mounting and handling basics, cover mastering the controls, and finally, we'll wrap up with speed and gear operations.
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, Essential Pre-Ride Checks.
Now, the absolute most crucial thing to understand right out of the gate is that safety, it doesn't just magically start when you turn the key. You're not in a car, right? You are totally exposed out there, which means your gear literally is your outer shell. Starting from the top, you absolutely have to wear an approved crash helmet. And hey, make sure you secure that chin strap nice and tight, or honestly, it's practically useless if you take a spill. Working our way down, you're going to need a highly visible, abrasion-resistant riding jacket, some really sturdy gloves to protect your hands, and proper footwear for your lower limbs. Your vitals and extremities are completely relying on this barrier. So once you're geared up and good to go, it's time to check the machine itself.
Okay, so here's your quick 6-step pre-ride routine. First off, just double-check that your fuel valve is actually turned on. Next up, give your tires a look. You want to make sure you've got at least 1.6 millimeters of tread depth and the right air pressure. Then, you want to get a real feel for the controls. Physically test the throttle, the clutch, and both brakes just to make sure they're all operating smoothly. After that, verify your lights, headlamps, signals, brakes, and, give the horn a quick honk. Check your engine oil levels so they're sitting right there between the high and low marks. And finally, check your chain. You want exactly 20 millimeters of slack here. If it's too loose, there's a real risk it could slip off mid-ride and get tangled in the rear wheel, which is a nightmare. This whole routine takes, maybe 2 minutes, but it will absolutely save you from a roadside disaster.
Moving right along to Section 2, Mounting and Handling Basics.
So, before you even think about lifting a leg over the bike, your very first move is to look back over your shoulder for traffic or anybody else on the road. It is such a simple little habit, but I promise you it saves lives. And as you approach the bike, don't just, casually hop on like it's a bicycle. Grip that front brake lever securely, straighten up the handlebars, and bring the motorcycle completely upright into a nice vertical position. Only then do you smoothly swing your right leg over the seat. It's all about establishing total control and stability before you even sit down. Now, what if you need to move the bike manually without the engine running? Well, body mechanics are literally everything here. If you're pushing forward, lean the motorcycle slightly into your waist. This lets you use your actual body weight to do the pushing, instead of just exhausting your arms. And you use the front brake to control your stop. But pushing backward? That requires a totally different approach. You want to steer the handlebars with your left hand, plant your right hand firmly on the seat, and look backward over your shoulder. Twist your hips, point your legs in the direction you're going, all while keeping the bike upright and close to you. It's honestly like an intricate little dance of leverage and balance. Okay, let's get into the fun stuff. Section 3, Mastering the Controls. Your right hand controls the throttle, which is the literal heartbeat of the engine. Throttle on means you're rolling the grip towards you, feeding the engine fuel so you increase the revs and accelerate. Need to slow things down? Well, throttle off means twisting the grip away from you to bring those revs back down. So, roll toward you to go, twist away to slow. It's a super kinesthetic movement once you get the hang of it, but remember, the throttle doesn't work alone. It has to cooperate flawlessly with what your left hand is doing. And that brings us to the friction point, which is pretty much the nemesis of every beginner rider out there. This is the exact, precise moment you gradually release the clutch lever halfway. It engages the mechanism so the engine's power is ready to feed directly to the rear wheel. Think of it as this delicate little tightrope between zero power and full power. If you can master finding this halfway point smoothly, you're going to avoid that incredibly embarrassing engine stall when the light turns green.
All right, final stretch. Section 4, Speed and Gear Operations.
Think of every gear as having a highly specific job to do. First gear generates tons of power but very low speed, so strictly use it for moving off from a standstill, up to about 20 kilometers per hour. Once you're rolling, click up into second gear for navigating tight corners or intersections, anywhere from 15 to 35. Now third gear, that's your sweet spot for moderate corners and overtaking, taking you up to 45. When you finally hit a nice, long, straight road, fourth gear is going to hold you comfortably up to 50. And for the expressways, or really anything above 50 kilometers per hour, you'll be cruising along in fifth. Always, always matching your physical gear to your current speed is the absolute key to maximum stability and keeping your engine healthy.
Navigating through these speeds seamlessly obviously requires shifting. When you upshift to a higher gear, you're accelerating to pick up speed. Pretty straightforward. But downshifting to a lower gear, that is just as critical for maintaining control. There are 3 major scenarios where you absolutely have to do this. First, right before coming to a stop, shifting down maximizes your engine braking, helping you slow down smoothly. Second, right before entering a corner, you want to shift down early to an appropriate gear, like third or second, so the bike doesn't dangerously jerk mid-turn. And third, when you're going uphill or downhill. Downshifting gives you the required power to climb without stalling out, and it gives you that essential engine braking to maintain a safe speed on the way back down. So how do we actually pull off a flawless gear shift in the real world? It's basically a definitive 5-step dance between your hands and your left foot. Step 1, pull the clutch fully in with your left hand. Step 2, close the throttle with your right hand. Step 3, shift the gear pedal with your left foot. Step 4, open the throttle gradually. And step 5, release the clutch gradually. Pull, close, shift, open, release. It sounds like a lot right now, but honestly, with practice, this perfectly synchronized sequence just becomes pure muscle memory. We've covered a lot today. We went through the critical pre-ride checks, the safest mounting procedures, the delicate balance of that tricky friction point, and the exact rhythm of the gears. You really do know the mechanics of your machine inside and out now. So the only question left is, knowing all of this, are you ready to confidently take control of your next ride? Visualize the steps we talked about, trust in your preparation, and get out there and ride safe.
Today, we're going to build a masterclass in motorcycle survival, and we're drawing it straight from the official Riding Theory Handbook. Whether you're a brand new rider just getting your bearings, or a seasoned veteran looking to sharpen up those instincts, the stuff we're digging into today is absolutely crucial. We are focusing specifically on the real meat of the manual, chapters 8, 9, and 10, spanning from page 39 to 87. So we'll be diving deep into essential riding skills, handling adverse road conditions, and perfecting that defensive riding mindset. So let's kick things off with a pretty high-stakes question to frame our focus today. What separates a good rider from a surviving rider? Well, as the data and the manuals show, riding safely out there on the open road, it is much less about the basic operation of the vehicle, shifting gears or balancing, and far more about proactive hazard management. Remember, you're out there operating a machine without any sort of outer protective shell. That means your mind and your anticipation are really your only true armor.
We've got 5 main stops on our map today: essential riding skills, adverse road conditions, the defensive mindset, navigating other road users, and finally, avoiding 2 vehicle crashes.
All right, jumping right into Section 1, Essential Motorcycle Riding Skills. It's all about mastering the machine first.
Now, at the very foundation of your riding skills is the frankly complex physics of stopping. It's absolutely critical to understand the difference between reaction distance and braking distance. The manual defines reaction distance as the distance you travel totally blindly between the exact moment you spot an emergency and the moment you actually get your foot onto that brake pedal. For the average rider, this takes about 3/4 of a second. Braking distance, on the other hand, is the actual mechanical distance it takes to stop the bike once those brakes are applied. So the big takeaway here is that conditions like tiredness or even just a small amount of alcohol drastically inflate that reaction time long before your brakes even get a chance to engage.
If you look at the official data we have here, you can clearly see the real-world impact of combining those 2 components. As your speed goes up, your total stopping distance increases exponentially. At 50 kilometers per hour, you need a total of 32 meters to come to a stop. But jump up to 90 kilometers per hour, that distance balloons to a massive 93 meters. Almost a full football pitch. And remember, that is strictly under ideal conditions. If you're on a wet road surface, the braking distance portion of that equation can easily double.
Moving on to Section 2, Conquering Adverse Road Conditions. Basically, what to do when nature fights back.
So, riding uphill versus riding downhill, they actually require completely contrasting strategies. If you're heading uphill, you need to accelerate to a speed higher than you would on a flat road, and you've got to be ready to quickly shift to a lower gear if the bike shows any signs of losing speed, just to maintain that power. But if you're riding downhill, your strategy flips entirely. You have to actively choose an appropriate lower gear, like second or even first on a really steep slope, specifically to utilize engine braking and keep control.
Now, night riding introduces some extreme risks, obviously due to poor visibility. You've got to dip your headlights when following or facing other vehicles so you don't blind them through their mirrors. But here is the critical part. When you're on a poorly lit road, using your high beams, you must absolutely never outdrive your headlight range. The average high beam reaches about 100 meters. If your stopping distance at your current speed is more than 100 meters, you are quite literally driving blind into a potential impact zone.
And then there's rain, which introduces this terrifying phenomenon known as aquaplaning. This happens when water builds up underneath your tires, causing a complete loss of friction with the road. If this happens to you, your steering is suddenly going to feel extremely light. The golden rule here? Absolutely do not brake. Braking hard locks the wheels and practically guarantees a nasty skid. Instead, just slow down gently by rolling off the throttle. If the bike does start to skid, steer gently in the direction of the skid to straighten out and let the tires regain traction.
Which brings us to Section 3, the defensive riding mindset. This is all about outsmarting the road.
Defensive riding really fundamentally redefines what it means to be a good rider. We're not just talking about vehicle control anymore. It's a fully active, proactive strategy. The manual insists that to pull this off consistently, you need 6 specific conditions to be optimal. Your condition as the rider, the motorcycle's condition, the traffic, the road, the weather, and the light conditions. Think about it. If you're angry, if you're exhausted, or if your bike has a faulty brake, your defensive shield is already compromised before you even turn the key.
To actually put this defensive mindset into practice, the handbook gives us a real game changer, the 12-second rule. It takes complex spatial awareness and breaks it down into a simple, repeatable mental checklist. You pick a fixed point down the road, maybe a bridge or a big sign, you count out 12 seconds, and you systematically scan that entire space for hazards. It forces you to forecast problems, like someone swerving into your lane, long before they become one of those split-second life-or-death emergencies.
All right, Section 4, Navigating Other Road Users. This is where we factor in the unpredictable human element.
Look, intersections are incredibly dangerous places, even when you're staring at a green light. The manual clearly points out that plenty of drivers just flat out ignore giveaway signs or stop signs. To survive them, you've got to memorize this life-saving mnemonic: know, slow, show, and go.
Know your route ahead of time, slow down gradually to anticipate anyone doing something reckless, show your intention with your signals nice and early, and only go with care. Never ever assume you have the right of way just because a sign says the other driver is supposed to yield.
When you're stuck in heavy traffic, managing your safety cushion is vital. You want to keep a minimum 2 to 4 second gap between you and the car in front. But here's the really brilliant part of this strategy. By increasing your own following distance, you're actually forcing the vehicle behind you to slow down as well. It's a proactive, clever way to manage the traffic behind you and help prevent a nasty chain reaction pileup.
And finally, we arrive at Section 5, avoiding two-vehicle crashes. These are your absolute highest risk scenarios.
According to the official theory booklet, two-vehicle accidents are the ones that result in the most deaths and injuries. And there are exactly 6 spatial positions where a two-vehicle crash happens. You can hit the vehicle in front of you, get hit from behind, hit an oncoming vehicle, get hit from the side, collide with someone overtaking you, or crash into a vehicle you are trying to overtake. Maintaining a 360-degree mental map of these exact 6 threats at all times, it's completely non-negotiable.
Out of those 6, the most common accident is colliding with the vehicle right in front of you. Why? Mostly because riders fail to anticipate sudden, unexpected stops. The manual lists the usual suspects here: taxis slamming on the brakes for a fare, drivers panic braking for a red light camera, or someone swerving and braking to miss a pothole. The driver in front has 0 time to signal. If you're tailgating, you are going to rear-end them. And let's be real, in a motorcycle versus car collision, the bike usually ends up being the loser.
Finally, we have to talk about the extreme dangers of overtaking. Passing another vehicle puts you in a highly vulnerable spot. You run the risk of getting sideswiped or catching head-on traffic. The manual advises that the smartest thing you can do is just match the prevailing traffic flow. That eliminates the need for others to pass you and keeps you from having to pass them. If someone is determined to overtake you, just ease off the throttle. Make it easy for them. Fighting for space on a motorcycle only guarantees you'll be the victim of a careless driver. So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a thought to chew on. The next time you grab your helmet and head out into the chaos of traffic, ask yourself, are you simply operating a machine, just twisting the throttle and shifting gears? Or are you actively riding to survive? Are you actually using that 12-second rule? Are you maintaining your safety cushion? Because out there on the asphalt, your defensive mindset is quite literally the only thing standing between you and the unpredictable. Ride safe, stay sharp, and always keep learning.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's the roadmap for today. We've got 4 main stops. First, conquering the circuit courses. Then, real-world hazards and general knowledge. Third, the surveillance camera network. And finally, the courteous rider. Let's get started. All right, Section 1, conquering the circuit courses, or mastering tight turns to actually save your life. You know, it's super easy to look at a riding test circuit and think, ugh, just another arbitrary hurdle to get my license. But honestly, that's the totally wrong mindset. These courses are literally engineered to drill in the exact physical skills you'll absolutely need to save your own life in a sudden emergency out on the road. Take the infamous S course, for example. The goal here is to safely navigate these really tight, winding curves in under 11 seconds. And the secret sauce? It's all about your posture. To nail this, you've got to grip that fuel tank securely with your knees, but keep your upper body completely relaxed. It's that specific balance, locked in lower body, fluid upper body, that lets you lean the bike and maneuver through crazy tight spaces without losing your stability. Next up is the crank course. This one demands that you pull off a series of sharp 90-degree turns in less than 6 seconds. This is all about knowing your motorcycle's absolute limits when it comes to speed and handling. It's a rapid-fire sequence. You brake at the perfect moment, release, turn, and then accelerate just a touch to lift the bike back up. It completely forces you to hold that correct posture while making deliberate split-second operational changes. But of course, things don't always go perfectly, right? The handbook points out 2 massive mistakes learners constantly make on both the S and crank courses. Number 1, failing to control your speed before entering the turn. If you come in too hot, the bike turns awkwardly, it wobbles, it's a mess. But if you go too slow, the engine starts knocking and you risk stalling out completely. And the second huge pitfall, dropping your line of sight. Learners have this terrible habit of looking down at the curb, which ironically almost guarantees you're going to hit that exact curb. You have got to keep your eyes up and focused on the next turning point. And that brings us to the next challenge, which is brilliantly designed, the Pylon Slalom. Now, this is not just about weaving around cones for fun. This is your absolute baseline test for emergency hazard avoidance. Picture this, a box suddenly falls off a truck right in front of you. This slalom maneuver, that's what saves you. The standard is tough too. You have to weave through this course in less than 6 seconds without clipping a single pylon. So, how do you beat that 6-second clock? The physical mechanics actually break down into this really beautiful 3-step rhythm. Step 1, decelerate slightly as you approach. You want to use the rear brake to control your speed without completely rolling off the throttle. Step 2, lean the motorcycle and look directly at the next pylon. Remember, eyes up. Step 3, lift the motorcycle upright and accelerate slightly to stabilize. So it goes decelerate, lean, lift, accelerate. It's literally a dance with the machine to weave safely through danger.
Okay, moving on to Section 2, Real-World Hazards and Knowledge, Graduating to the Open Road.
So once you've mastered the totally controlled environment of the circuit, you're suddenly thrown into the chaotic, high-stakes reality of public roads. And man, the variables multiply instantly. One of the biggest variables you'll face, adding another human being to the back of your bike. Carrying a pillion passenger completely changes the balance, the acceleration, and the braking dynamics of your motorcycle. Because of that, it is absolutely crucial that you brief your passenger before you even touch the ignition. You've got to tell them to sit as close to you as possible, keep their feet planted on the footrests at all times, yes, even when you're stopped at a light, grip your waist or hips firmly, and most importantly, they need to lean with you in the exact same direction when taking a corner.
Let's break down how this actually changes the real-world physics of riding. A solo rider has a pretty predictable stopping distance and a curve of acceleration they're used to. But throw a passenger on there, now you're dealing with a lot of extra weight. So what does that mean practically for you out on the road? Well, it means you're going to need a significantly longer stopping distance. It also means you need way more clear, open road ahead of you if you decide to overtake someone, simply because your acceleration rate is noticeably slower. You literally cannot ride the bike the same way you do when you're by yourself. And you for sure do not want to misjudge your overtaking distance when you're around one of these. Heavy vehicles are high, they're long, and they're surrounded by absolutely enormous, deadly blind spots. Accidents involving these massive trucks are almost always incredibly serious or even fatal. As a rider, your job is to stay entirely out of those danger zones. The golden rule from the handbook here is super simple. Drop back. Just keep dropping back until you can clearly see the driver's face in their own side mirrors. Because I promise you, if you can't see them, they absolutely cannot see you. Which brings us to Section 3, the surveillance camera network, the unblinking eyes on the road. Now, the harsh reality of public roads is that traffic rules are strictly enforced to prevent the exact fatal risks we were just talking about. And it's not just human police officers out there doing the watching anymore. I want you to really burn this number into your memory. 12. 12 demerit points. Paired with a massive $400 fine, that is the severe penalty just for beating a single red light. It's a huge punishment, right? But it's astronomical for a reason. Running a red light puts pedestrians and crossing traffic at immediate risk of a catastrophic, fatal collision. To keep this in check, the traffic police have deployed a massive, interconnected network of cameras. We're talking fixed red light cameras, towering speed cameras, and mobile speed cameras that can be rapidly set up in specific problem areas. And notice how they're all painted in these hyper-visible traffic orange colors? They are definitely not trying to hide. They're designed to act as a blatant visual deterrent to stop errant motorists in their trucks. The core lesson here is pretty straightforward. Adherence to traffic rules is required at all times, not just when you happen to spot a police car in your rearview mirror. All right, final stop, Section 4, the courteous rider, the unwritten and written rules of road culture. Now, I know courtesy might sound like kind of a soft, fluffy topic compared to crash physics and speed cameras, but I assure you, when you are navigating the roads on a highly vulnerable motorcycle, courteous riding isn't just about having good manners. It is a critical, fundamental component of defensive riding and preventing accidents. Actually, let me pose a direct question to you based on this idea. We talked about the slalom course earlier, right? So you know exactly how to weave. But out on the open highway, why shouldn't you weave in and out of traffic lanes? Take a second and really think about the physics and the psychology of the drivers surrounding you. Well, the official handbook gives us the absolute, straightforward truth. You do not weave in and out of traffic lanes because it causes immediate confusion and serious danger to everyone else. Swerving and cutting into the path of other vehicles is deeply discourteous, sure, but more importantly, it is highly likely to trigger an accident. Think about it. Predictability equals safety. The moment you start weaving, you completely destroy that predictability. You know what else destroys predictability and safety? Distraction.
Just look at this incredibly strict breakdown of the mobile device laws. An offense is officially committed if you meet 3 specific conditions at the exact same time. 1, you are physically holding a mobile communication device. 2, you're using any function of that device, so that's calling, texting, or even just glancing at a map. And 3, the motor vehicle is in motion. If you hit those 3 criteria, you are looking at a potential fine of up to $1,000, or even a 6-month jail sentence. No joke, the stakes of distraction are just way, way too high when you're out there balancing on 2 ends.
We're going to close out this explainer with a surprisingly powerful quote right out of the handbook. It says, "Always be patient. Do not rush or lose your cool on the road. Indicate that you are sorry when you have caused inconvenience to others." Just think about that for a second. The official traffic police manual is explicitly instructing riders to apologize. A simple, gracious little wave or nod to say "my bad" when you make a mistake, that can instantly soothe an angry driver and completely de-escalate a potentially dangerous road rage situation.
And that leaves us with a final thought to ponder as you get ready to hit the streets. You've conquered the circuit courses, you understand the literal physics of the open road, and you know about the unblinking eyes of the camera networks watching over it all. But ultimately, the safety of the road relies entirely on the human beings operating the machines. So ask yourself, will your patience, your predictability, and your courtesy be the reason someone else gets home safely today? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. And hey, ride safe out there.